Welcome back. So we're going to do a continuation of what we did just before the break, talking about digital transformation. So it's quite interesting because obviously this is the best event this week, but there's also a couple happening in Taiwan and in Washington State, Microsoft Build and NVIDIA Computex. And I think what's quite interesting is that we all do the same thing. Please can you put a timer on, because otherwise I'm going to talk too much again. There we go, thank you. Because I think, I was saying the same thing is happening all around, which is about partnership at platforms. So this is obviously the best event to discuss that by a mile, but it is quite interesting that having 3 events in 3 different parts of the world, looking more or less at the same thing, or having kind of the same overarching theme. So we're going to talk about digital transformation, and we're going to talk about the platforms that are everywhere and connected the platform, but I'm going to be slightly lazy because I'm going to ask the same question as the AI panel this morning, which is, what can consumers do today? Because I think this is also what we're here for, in terms of not so much talking about what they could do in 5 years' time, but what can they do now? And I think everybody in the room is interested with that. So, Nevin, if I want to start with you, what can consumers do today?
Sure. Consumers, maybe not so much with our portfolio, but let's say users, customers. Yeah. We are building our platform strategy with our customer outcomes in mind, and everyone wants to increase productivity, improve collaboration between their teams, improve sustainability. And so at the core of a lot of that is connecting their data, their teams, their workflows, enabling it with AI, making it secure. So specifically, what they can do today, for example, I'll just give an example from AEC. In Forma, which is the beginnings of our industry cloud strategy, but it's in market already, you can create a concept design for a building, immediately see the impact, AI-generated simulations, impact of sunlight, heat, wind, carbon impact, so that you can iterate quickly and get to a better decision. Then you can move into Revit for a detailed design, so that data connection is already there for that digital thread. You can then design your data building in detail in Revit. That is connected to our construction cloud, where you can then use that for scheduling, estimating, and coordination with your subcontractors while building it. Again, it's already connected in market. We can actually then, once it's built, hand it over in Autodesk Tandem, which is a digital twin, to the operator for, essentially, again, a connected digital twin. So we are building that in all our industry solutions. We've started in all of them, and these parts are already available. And also, if we know that our customers are not only using our products as much as we would love them to, but they're not. And so we want to embrace that. And so we are building connectors, and we have a lot of connectors with even our competitors that we have built so that our customers can use these other products in their workflows as they do. We also have APIs and are enabling thousands of developers that are here already that are building solutions. And so we are building all of this in an open way, and this is all available today for our customers to use.
So quite a lot that they can do already today.
Yes.
Gert, what about you? What would you say in terms of what?
So I would actually go back to your initial presentation earlier at the session, where you had the comparison, not only the world economy, but Europe, the different sort of nation states in Europe. And I mean, I guess we all feel in some of the industries in which we work or serve, and especially also regarding our general ability to compete in global markets. And in that regard, specifically with China, we're falling behind. So, and therefore, I think as consumers, as well as players within the industry, we can't afford to be complacent. We need to be much quicker on our feet, much more aggressive. And just as an example, which is not from construction, but from the automotive industry, the European manufacturers on average, from design to manufacturing to serial production, have a product cycle, or engineering cycle, product development cycle of 4 years. The Chinese are able to do this in 2 years for a battery electric car. So cutting our product development by another year simply doesn't suffice, right? To be able to play, to compete, you need to cut it in half, shave 2 years off. And then you're already on only level playing field. So I guess it's a little bit like, as consumers, as players, we need to demand more. We need to demand more of our customers, our partners, because the game for competitive edge is on, and it's serious this time.
Yes, I mean, you're right. We're in a global battle, and this is, I think, in a way, technology is going to help us, or not using technology in my interest. So this is kind of very, very important from a global perspective. Conrad, what about you? What would you say to what people can do today?
There can be a lot done today, and there is a lot done today on actually individual teams using individual installations of data. And the key thing is, like, how can we share this data? Because ultimately, that's the bottleneck. It's very simple. And if that data sharing is our bottleneck, and that is the enabler for better collaboration as well, because I give you data, you give me data, and I have more insight, and we grow together, we have a 1 + 1 = 3 situation, we can do a lot. And the beautiful thing is, and that's why I very often think also about all of what we're experiencing here more as a convergence, as an evolution, than just a revolution, is that a lot of work, like in thinking, for example, in services instead of files, is work that both Autodesk and Esri have been embracing for many, many years, right? That's not a new concept. That's out there. And if I have the data installed in these big enterprise systems that municipalities, public administrations, but also companies have, they all have the ability already today, for example, when running ArcGIS, to serve out each layer individually, to do privilege management, to be able, in a secure way, only to give this layer to these particular type of people. This is important to give the confidence, the transparency, and the trust to actually take that step. That's something we see that is inherently important. And lastly, from a capability standpoint, like, there is a lot that empowers all of that. Many things have been there a long time, like in the 2D space. More 3D capabilities are coming in. We can deal with data at a massive scale, stream that through lower-end devices. This is all standard technology. There is nothing special anymore about that. We can take any BIM model and really stream it out. And I think that is really key to remember, not only like the technology is there, but interesting, it is also in the actual installations that are used in the organizations. And so it all comes down to that final questions: how can we convince each other to work in connected platforms and share data with each other?
Yes, and I think we're going to discuss that, and we kind of go breaking down in terms of the data, the technologies that are available, and then I guess the platform, and then we can talk a bit about the use cases we're seeing. So maybe let's start with the data, because you mentioned it, and obviously during your presentation you said that 90% of the data has been created in the last 2 years, which I think I've seen for the past 10 years, but that's quite interesting in terms of how much you created data. So without data, no digital transformation, that's kind of obvious, and there's a lot of data around, so it's not an issue, oh, I don't have any data, therefore I can't do it. It's just, I have a lot of data, I'm just not quite sure what to do with it. And or exactly, how am I storing it, or am I accessing it, what kind of governments I need to put in place, regulation, because we're in Europe, we've got the GDPR, and if you do personal data, that's kind of an issue. So maybe my question to you would be, what would be the thing that you need to do with data, I guess, first? What are the different steps that are required in order to get that building block settled, and then you can move on to do more interesting things and more transformational things? Conrad, do you want to start with that? Or?
Yeah, sure. I think, of course, as a GIS thinker, we always think, okay, I don't need to put everything into one data thing. And I think getting away from that monolithic thinking is really important. It's totally okay if each organization, if each domain does it in their way, in their layer, and we just bring it together in different shapes or forms is important. That's where layer thinking and sharing and federated systems and systems of systems, connected data environments come into play. All of that, yet at the same time, is standard technology, and that is really strong. The other aspect is, of course, not everything is geospatial by nature in our minds. Right? There's a lot more, and We've just been discussing this also before that, right? The big power that actually AI actually brings in now is we are also able to take in unstructured data a lot more and in a lot more easier way, right? And that's super powerful. We can do synthesis of data, make it more discoverable, to find it more efficiently. That's really strong. But also, let's not forget, we can make all of that more accessible to everyone, right? Because data can only be found if I can describe it. So if I have the knowledge how to describe it. But if you think about AI also like as a machine interface, a human-machine interface, we can, for example, talk to a map and say, like, get me all these types of data, bring it together like this. That's another really important aspect. And as a last point, I want to add to that, thinking in different types of representations. So of course, coming from a GIS space, we are a lot used to vector maps. Then we have raster data, right? These are vector tiles. We have 3D meshes, we have point clouds, we have all these sorts of things. And this is still holding true, like all coming together on big relational databases. But there's also this entire other world, like of graph databases, right? Because, and that's the irony, I always love it, like relational databases can't handle relations really well. So keeping that in mind makes unstructured data is the thing where we need to embrace also other types of layers. And we don't have to find a one-size-fits-all solution. Let's build little domains. Let's start small and iterate and connect it together on a layer level, and then we can actually move forward in small steps.
Guts, what about you? What would you say?
I guess, not to repeat what Konrad said, I think one of the key things for us as partners, players in projects, let's call it that one, regardless if it's a piece of urban planning or a construction project, let's start with a business process re-engineering mindset first. I think we all have witnessed and are continuous witnesses, if not victims, of bad processes. Right? Bad processes where data aren't shared, but they could be shared, regardless of the data privacy requirements. There are ways and means to handle data privacy requirements. We should start with a goal in mind, which basically says, let's cut the cycle time for a piece of urban planning in half, right? Without compromising on environmental impact analysis, stakeholder engagement, whatever. But just think about, if you take a business process re-engineering, reinvention view, which are the parties in which process step? Where are process breaks, right? Data is not complete. Data is shared in formats which are not applicable to both Gen AI, agentic AI, which can accelerate the development. So I would say it's not necessarily a problem of data, it's data availability, but that can, I mean, you made the case earlier in this session. Cloud is the most powerful enabler of data availability, accessibility, and the ability to manipulate and work with data, right? But the data privacy requirements, they can be met. We should meet them. But there is very often a sort of mindset which is almost too abstract, right? We have a tangible issue. Again, take urban planning. There is a piece of urban planning which has to meet certain regulatory requirements. These are non-negotiable, right? Let's not care about those, but let's think about how can we get to the desired outcome, a plan which then results in subsequent construction is completed faster than the status quo. And look at the process. Look at what's working, what doesn't work. And I think it's better to share data than to debate around, are the data available? Do we have the right governance? And by the way, bad actors can do bad things with data. They always can do, right? I think we need to change our mindset in that regard.
But how can you do that? What would be the one thing to do? Is it just on a company level, making the decision? Is it the C-suite? Is it something else?
I think in that sense, it takes good examples, right? And good examples come from, I would argue, good projects. Projects where, again, take urban planning, right? You have a municipality, and you need stakeholders in the municipality, decision makers, who actually say, well, we are not satisfied with the status quo. We want to change it. We are looking for good partners. We are looking for good technology providers. We want to make it work. We want to prove the point. And this creates almost like a positive momentum, of which we have too little in Europe. And I firmly believe, given the quality of people we have, I mean, neither in public administration nor in companies are people with bad intentions, quite the opposite, right? But we need to release positive energy through good, novel practices. And I believe that's also an opportunity for Europe.
So that's sort of your jobs to do, eh? Maybe. Nevin, what about you? What would you say is needed about data going forward?
Yeah, I want to build on Konrad said increments, start in increments. You said something about business case or business process reengineering. I think those are really important because what I've had a number of conversations with customers where their data strategy was, let's get all the data in here and then we'll put some AI magic on top of it and we will be the digital leader of our industry. I'm like, what was the business outcome you're trying to get to? Well, we don't know that yet. We're getting all our data in here, and then we're going to put some AI magic on top of it, and we'll be the digital leader of our industry. And so I think that's a little big
That
goal.
doesn't work.
But it might take forever.
It's actually proven that it doesn't work.
Yes. So, starting small with a specific business outcome in mind, and then proving that out, and then while you're doing that, fixing the processes that go into that one, learning from there, securing it. So we have our data model APIs now available for a while already, which it is prompting some of these conversations because customers can extract the information that is traditionally locked in these big design files in their elements into some other place where they can then do other things with it, which is great. This is exactly why we're doing it. Automations and whatnot, but then what some of them are doing, let's just get it all out there and then we'll see later, right? So that's probably not the best way to use it. Well, you can, but really coming up with that outcome in a targeted use case, and then the data model APIs currently, they enable you to get it in a structured way at least, so it's at least clean and organized, so that piece of it. All the other data they can figure out separately. But
Yeah, and I think the same, if we move away a bit from data towards the technology, is kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. You might talk, you want to do cloud AI, you mentioned digital twins, all those things, and people kind of start with that first, without talking about the business outcome and not seeing them as tools. So in terms of technology, do you have like any kind of relevant example in terms of the thing that you can do, because there's more and more technology out there, so it's not like we're restricted in any sense, you can do more and more, but in a way, not starting from the technology saying, we talked about AI in the morning, but I know a lot of companies, they're under pressure to do AI just because AI is there, and you have to show you need to do AI. I think this same one was similar was with cloud maybe a few years ago, so maybe asking you for an example in terms of interesting technology that have been used in terms of digital transformation, but kind of focusing on what was the use case, what was the business outcome. Do you have anything you're able to share in terms of going in that way? Maybe starting with you, Nevin?
For AI or for?
For any technology that you can think of in terms of you had a customer which had a specific outcome and then you use different technology. It could be AI, it can be cloud, it can be digital twins, whatever you have.
Sure.
It's open to you.
We're definitely built, I report to the chief technology officer, so we're a little bit of a technology-driven group, obviously. However, I also come from a corporate strategy background, so I'm always the one, okay, business outcome, what are we doing this for? So definitely tracking. In terms of specific examples on the AI side, so I'm just going to have a hard time with the customer examples. Because we're actually building quite a bit of capabilities into the existing products, but I'm not going to bore you with those in terms of generative AI capabilities that are already available. In a very mature technology that our ecosystem of partners that is here at this conference are heavily using, our APIs. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our customers are building integrations we have, again, thousands of apps in the App Store, but also their own custom integrations. So, for example, Staticus in EMEA, it's a Façade manufacturer, and they design and build and install building facades. And what they do with our APIs as well, is they have this custom dashboard where they can see the building model live, and they can give access to this to their non-technical, non-CAD business users. And they integrate their logistical data into it, as well as cost data from their ERP system. So in one view, everybody involved can see the current status of the project. And what that does is better decision making. If there's a delay, everybody immediately knows project schedules get adjusted. If there is in the field a change, people can mark it up. The designer goes, updates the model. Again, it's just much better collaboration, less time waste. Again, this is a very mature technology, not necessarily generative AI cool, but it's adding real business value to lots of our customers right now.
And I think what I like with the example is something we've also seen in the previous panel on AI, that a lot of time people are trying to think of new things to do with technology, apart from looking at what they can do better. And I think this is one of them. And you mentioned it also in your presentation, goes in terms of operation and kind of changing the way you're doing things. So maybe are you able to kind of maybe dig a bit deeper and kind of example of things, not necessarily we need to put technology because we need to drive a new revenue stream and we forget about everything we do now, we don't do technology for that. And I think it's probably the opposite, and we need to think, okay, we're doing it that way, but why do we need to do it that way? Or can we do it better or easier?
Yeah, let me share two examples. One is a little bit like an incremental improvement, both efficiency and effectiveness topic, and the other one is around actually an extension of an existing business model. So the example where we applied both Gen AI as well as agentic AI is for an aircraft manufacturer. And typically you have a basic design, a basic model. In that case, A320, one of the world's best-selling single-aisle commercial aircraft. And typically the airlines, it's all lot size one. The airlines want all variations. They want different seats, different spacing, whatsoever. A lot of people actually think aircraft manufacturing is serial. It's not, right? It's one of its kind. And all of that needs to be engineered by engineers, right? And we basically took a task of an engineering change, which is not that common, but we basically said there is an airline. Let's imagine an airline which wants to have larger windows. So it looks like a simple design change, but it's actually a very serious design change because it has an impact on the structural integrity of the hull, which basically means you need to do all the calculation around thickness of the wall, the size of the window, stress and fatigue points. So basically we took a CAD application for the basic design. We did model-based engineering and the calculation based on the design change. Let's assume we changed the window size by 1 centimeter. Then the simulation engine, again, does all the calculations around what are the points of fatigue and stress. Where do they occur? Simulation, right? You can do that. And then finally, the validation. The design is actually, quote unquote, approved, validated with certain changes in the structure. And then you have the human in the loop, right? And basically, a super agent connects all the processes. But basically, what you have had historically, previously, as existing practice was engineers doing stuff, doing the handovers, and then the final validation. So this can be greatly improved and accelerated using Gen AI and super agents. So that's the efficiency incremental improvement one. For another client, and for those of you who are still who want to see it, we have it at our booth downstairs. It's for a company, Kion, a German company which manufactures undercarriage and supply chain solutions, basically warehouses, automated warehouses. And they historically worked as an EPC. So a customer shows up, Amazon, whomever, DHL, can you build us a warehouse? We're including the warehouse technology, storage and inbound, outbound, AGVs, AMRs, palletizing, all that stuff. And they looked at it, so can we actually design a solution which comes very close to a dark warehouse, a fully autonomous warehouse? And then we helped them build a solution where they basically are getting very close to a fully autonomous warehouse, including humanoid robots. And this is basically also something, I mean, it is an extension of their business model, but this would allow them to sell novel solutions with a superior value proposition to their clients. So I think 2 examples where you basically can see it's feasible, and to your point, Nevin, it's a little bit like, what do you ultimately want? What do you think your customers want, and how can that be achieved? A lot of the thinking it's very often driven by, let's look at the technology irrespective of what I want to achieve and want to do with it. It's a little bit like, if you use the metaphor, I've got basically a toolkit, and then start playing around with tools without knowing, is it a hammer which drives a nail into the wall for getting a picture up, or what is it? So I think the opportunities are there. It's just we need to be very clear about what we want to achieve and then how we do it.
Conrad, do you have an example of a similar trend in terms of things that can be done better, I guess,
Totally.
with technology?
I like the conversation from the 2 of you about going away from technology-driven to more outcome-driven. Actually, first getting a consciousness on where we are with our business, what are our actual bottlenecks, and what happens to us. And I mean, that exercise is really vital, right? And I understand that many people are scared to fall behind the whole AI train, for example. But still, I think when we look back at strong leadership, then we see these are people that are able to understand and listen and break down, right, and go to the core of it. And some of the examples are then very simple in the end. So, for example, the things in Zurich I showed last week, I saw a presentation from them. They said, listen, we don't have a digital twin, we have 23 digital twins. And that's it for us, right? Some of them are very simple, just a dashboard. Others are more mature. And for us, it's totally fine to be ambiguous about that. And we are now very relaxed about this. We just get things done. And to me, this was so soothing, especially if you are working with public administration. You're like, that is fantastic. Just in the coffee break, talked with some folks who are integrating Autodesk and S3 platforms for utility network providers in the Nordic countries. And I mean, there's so much different types of data that need to come together, especially for utility networks and environmental impact and all the things that have to be done. And it's long-term cycle things. So that is really working. But one thing that has been really striking for me is something that's a bit on a different scale. It is a statewide digital twin in Germany that I'm really excited about, because there is, for the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which is one of the biggest states in Germany from an inhabitant standpoint, it's like, I think 13,000 square miles for our American friends. It's just like 32,000 square kilometers, I think, something in that range. I always just can keep one number. I don't know why, but yeah. Anyway, they actually had a major flooding in 2021 with many people actually dying. Like it's the Aarhochwasser, like a massive flooding event that actually led to devastating destruction. It's actually paralyzing to look at the pictures. But when they actually analyzed after that disaster, like how did we work together, they realized our systems are not well enough connected. We need to rethink. We need to rethink how we work with each other, like the emergency response with the utility providers, where the information is really important for the construction that has to be done, all of these things. So they thought, like, what can we do different? And for public administration, that was remarkable. They said, we want to recreate that emergency response system, but we want to turn it into a 3D digital twin. But well, there's one thing, to the budgetary and political reasons, we only have 11 months to finish it, which is, for public administration, that's going back to cycle times like impossible. So I think the remarkable thing about that was that actually the Minister of the Interior, actually the IT department itself got up and said, why don't we just try it, right? We have no clue about this whole GIS thing and that, but like, I mean, why should it not work, you know, like, but what they did is they interviewed every week another participant of that, like somebody from the fire department and somebody from like emergency response and so forth. And they said, in the end of the project, we implemented something entirely different than we thought at the beginning. In that time, produced a 3D mesh from the aerial imagery that they had for the entire country, integrated it, hosted it, so it's ready for 1 million users at the same time. Just the 3D mesh is 14 terabytes in size. So everyone who has been dealing with 3D meshes, it's absolutely seamless. You can actually have a look at it as open data as well, like in the web. They made it happen within 11 months and took that entire digital twin there and are now like leaving the entire administrations in Germany a little bit like in this question, like what do we have to change from how we work with each other to make things like that happen, which I find quite inspiring.
Yeah, and it's actually a perfect segue for what I want to discuss next, and we've got about 10 minutes to go, which is about that need for collaboration, that need for partnership, the kind of need for platforms. So I remember when I used to be more of a telecoms analyst, all the telecoms company and vendors coming to me, we want to sell to enterprise, we want to do everything. I'm like, one, you probably can't do everything, and two, I don't think your clients want you to do everything either. And they sometimes struggle to understand those two concepts. So my question to you is, you're all partnering with each other, you're all kind of, you know, I mean, I'm sure you would love to do everything and just have one, you know, your clients and your customer just using one solution coming from you, but you know that's kind of not feasible as well. So one, how do you partner? What is kind of the best way to partner between of you? Do you just focus on what you do best and try to find your best smarter for other bits of area like you've done with S3 and Autodesk? Is it kind of the wrong way to go? And two, how do you, I guess, handle that kind of end-user customer relationship? Because I think there's some cases where everybody wants to talk to the end user, and sometimes people are not very happy to be part of a solution where they don't have a direct relationship. So what is kind of the best way in order to kind of mitigate that in a sense? Who wants to start? Or do I pick one of you?
I'm happy to go.
Come on first.
It's
go.
because it connects so nicely to the thing. Like in Esri, we're heavily relying on partners, right? And all of what we do, and again, we talk about collaboration all day long, is about an ecosystem that can make the things happen. We need tailored systems, right? And that is really key, systems that integrate. And so in Esri, we work with 3 different types of partners, and they can all come together in the way they need, right? There is system integration, of course, it is really important. There is services itself, and then there's also domain partners, so people that really know their domain really well, that can describe the problem, which is often half the solution already. And so that is really key, and we work on different levels also, for example, with Accenture, like also on board level, right? Because it also needs different phases of communication, but also in the integration itself. And in the end, that partnership model has really also made Esri big, like in many countries, like it's working exactly the same ways in all the countries. And it's needed as well because, like, again, we want to work outcome driven. And I think the best way is to do events like that. So thank you to the Autodesk friends again for doing this, because that's the easiest way to learn a lot, and also partner events that we need to get to know that. And actually finding these domain gaps, right? Finding these levers, right? Where can we have a multiplicative effect, like a problem that really makes things different and focus on the outcome, not on the technology. That has been getting us quite far, and I think will get us further.
Nevin, you wanted to go?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I come at it from a technology partnerships perspective. That's part of my role as well at the platform level. And, you know, we, again, starting with the customer outcomes that we want to drive, we look at, okay, what capabilities do we need to have then to be able to drive those customer outcomes or enable those customer outcomes? And I mean, there's no way we can do all of them, and we actually don't want to do all of them. We want to be in the design and make space. We're not trying to be SAP. We're not trying to be Esri. We're not trying to do many things. We're trying to be really good at what we do. And so to enable those capabilities, each of those we look at and say, okay, must we do this ourselves, or is this something we don't feel like we must do it? So who can we partner with? Who can already do this in the fastest, most efficient way, and have those conversations? We have a very long list of capabilities we're trying to build, not just AI and data and visualization and simulation, and it just keeps going. So we absolutely know that we have to partner. Actually, at the booths, we're showing some partnerships that may not even be quite as ambitious, but prototypes with AWS, for example, where we built an integration together where the Fusion customer can get consumables like filament for their 3D printer from the Amazon Marketplace by just clicking on that button. It's much easier for the end user. So even things like that we're looking at. And obviously our ecosystem partners, the bigger ones like Esri, that's bigger integrations, but we also have these thousands of developers that are building to integrate with Autodesk via our APIs and App Store. So therefore, that is a set of partners that we enable with our developer network, with our APIs services, with these types of events, because we absolutely need all of them.
Good. What about you?
I think one of the key topics for me in these partnerships is apparently and obviously trust, right? Trust amongst the partners, because that then transfers to the customer. And I think there are a couple of good mechanisms, proven mechanisms, to get to a trustful relationship in the partnership. One is combining strengths, right? We need to be very clear about who contributes what to the ultimate objective. And think about it, like again, a little bit with the engineering mindset. The customer has a set of requirements, and how in a partnership do we fulfill these requirements to the best sort of advantage of the customer? And I think all parties very often, and consultants are specific in that regard, they always have a tendency to say, but we can do not only that, but also that, and that, and that, and then the list goes on endlessly. I think for a given problem, a given situation at a customer, be very clear about what is the division of labor, what is the 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, or a multiple of the number of parties, and also be clear about the gaps. I think that is always what I've seen also in customer engagement. Sometimes you have to educate and enlighten the customer as you go along. And this is also where it calls for cohesion with the partners. If you know about your relative strengths and weaknesses, that can be turned even into an advantage, because you can develop certain features which we or Autodesk or Esri didn't have it on the feature list as part of the project, which is also beneficial. So I think trust, consistency in communication, clear division of labor, partnering for customer success, and also being clearly aware of gaps, weaknesses, not only the strength. And but again, I believe that it's almost a truism in the current environment. Partnership, the ecosystem is the only way to go. I mean, that's clear. Therefore, I think we need more success cases where we partner for success.
Yeah, we've got just under 2 minutes to go, so a very quick question and mostly very quick answers. If you were going to tell the audience here to do one thing above other, what would it be in terms of a digital transformation journey? Nevin, you want to start?
Pick a use case with a clear outcome and build towards that. Start building.
Start building. So listen, you're taking notes because this is important. Guts.
Don't be afraid of any North Stars. Go for cycle time reduction by half, right? Not 10%, not the obvious 20%. 50%, why not?
Conrad?
Build little demos. Build little things that translate what you want to show so people understand it. And it's easier than ever. Like, it's so simple to show what you actually want to show with the technology that is available.
is flashing red, even though we've got a minute to go. So I'm going to leave it there. So I want to thank the three of you, Nevin, Gus, and Conrad, for a very, very interesting conversation. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you very much. Thank you.